looking at success stories, and I decided I'm just going to do it. So I just went 100%. I like to say that in the military, I was a plans officer, and I like to plan as though success is inevitable. That's the way you plan. So the way I planned was I'm burning my ships like Cortez did. When he got to the New World, he burned his ships and with 600 men was able to conquer a whole Aztec nation. And I was like, that's the way I'm doing it, man. I'm just going to burn the ships. So I emptied my cupboard, emptied my fridge, donated everything except for the seed oils, which I dumped down the oil because I recognized how dangerous they were. I donated all the other food, although it was still not good for you. It is survival food. And I donated it to the local church pantry and bought meat and started eating. And the only thing I kept in my pantry that was for my son because he was 13 at the time, and I only have him every other weekend. We're divorced, so I didn't want to force something on him that was so alien. And I figured I'll just set the example. That's the way I led when I was in the Army. And people will follow or they won't, but I'll set the example. So I set the example. And then in July, he became full carnivore on his own volition. And now he's excelling at sports and he's lost 10 pounds. He looks great. And
well, hi, everybody, and welcome to Bold Carnivore. Today we're sitting down with Larry Allhands. He goes by Carnivore Soldier on YouTube. Howdy, Larry.
Hey, all right. Carnivore Soldier coming at you from Austin, Texas. How you doing, man?
I'm great. Thanks for asking. Nice to meet you, man.
It's good to meet you.
I know that you're carnivore, but I don't know for how long you've been carnivore or what brought you to carnivore. If you wouldn't mind laying it out for the audience.
Yeah, I've been carnivore, strict carnivore, which is the way I started since March 22nd. What happened was most of my life, I've been pretty athletic and was in the military, either active duty or National Guard, retiring in 2019. But after 2017, I started getting injuries piling up. I was getting older. I was in my 50s. I'm 57 now. When I retired, I think I was 54. So my last few years in the military are really difficult because I couldn't even run anymore. I had what's called a running profile, which means in the Army that you can walk instead of running. And a lot of things just started piling up and they weren't healing. My body was I know now, is completely inflamed from my standard American diet. I started gaining weight. Exercising my body didn't respond to exercise like it used to. As a younger person, you're more resilient. I think you can handle the poisoning that our food system does, and you can actually work out and counter it. But as you get older, things start changing. And I think I just hit that saturation point where my body was like, that's enough. And I was getting sicker and sicker. And then, of course, COVID happened because that was 2019. That was November 2019. I think January 2020 is when I first started tracking COVID from the troops over in South Korea, because I was still in touch with some people when they locked down bases over there. So then, of course, we rolled into COVID. No one did anything. And my body just started going really south. And by fast forward to 2022, I was up to 280 pounds. So when I got out, I was about 250, maybe 250, 252 or 255. So I'd put on a lot more weight. And of course, also had gotten further out of shape, not running anymore. Isolation during COVID was no good for anyone. That kind of stuff happened. So then it was March of 2023. And I had bought a Jeep and I was looking for parts to put on my Jeep because I like off-roading. And I saw that crazy Dante Fregno video, which was 123 days of lion diet or something, I think it is. And because that was served up to me, which I wasn't searching for any diet, I wasn't searching for exercise or carnivore or weight loss. I was searching for Jeep parts. But it did serve that up to me because in the past I had done keto when I was in the Army. So maybe because it knew I used to do diet stuff that it served it up. So like in the past, I used to use keto to get in shape for schools and lose weight for record PT tests and that kind of, what PT is a physical fitness test, that kind of stuff. So I had used dieting as a low carb diet in the past. Of course, anyone that's done keto knows that that's a completely different animal than carnivore. Carnivore is a ketogenic diet, but in keto, I was always hungry. I was always snacking. I was eating the keto-friendly foods that you find in Costco or gas stations, including Quest bars and these kind of things that are terrible for you, not knowing. So I was probably getting just a partial effect, but I was still enough when I was younger to make a difference when I was doing my test. The YouTube algorithm probably knew that I was interested in dietary stuff because I had seen Dr. Berry and such and all these when I was doing keto back before 2017, 2018. So that's probably why it served it up to me. But I'd never heard of carnivore. And I actually heard of it, but thought it was really extreme. I never thought I would do it. And so keto, anyone that's done that diet knows it's a completely different animal, although both are ketogenic diets. A keto diet, you can eat much more. And I was eating the stuff you buy off the shelf, the processed keto foods. I would say that probably led to me falling off every time, and also minimized my gains. That once I switched to carnivore, was completely different, right? You get way more gains. So anyway, so I was looking for Jeep parts, got fed this video from Dante Fregno, and saw that, and then thought, well, that can't be true. That's a scam. But it was pretty amazing because it was like day to day, right? So then I thought, well, surely he can't be still carnivore, because I saw the date on the video and it was old. I'm like, that's old. So I went and looked at a new one, and he looked better. And his mind was, his way he talked, everything was changed about the guy. So then I thought, okay, there might be something to this. So I started searching carnivore diet. And that's when I saw that Dr. Berry had switched to carnivore diet. And I'd always respected him from keto. And I'm like, wow, he switched. There's got to be some legitimacy here then. Then I went down the rabbit hole finding all the doctors, Dr. Kiltz, Dr. Berry, Dr. Chafee, Dr. Baker. And once I saw all them, I was like, okay, there's a cohort here of doctors that are doing this. So this is legit. And then I started going through influencers and seeing what they were doing and looking at success stories. And I decided I'm just going to do it. So I just went 100%. I like to say that in the military, I was a plans officer, and I like to plan as though success is inevitable. That's the way you plan. So the way I planned was, I'm burning my ships like Cortez did. When he got to the New World, he burned his ships, and with 600 men was able to conquer a whole Aztec nation. And I was like, that's the way I'm doing it, man. I'm just going to burn the ships. So I emptied my cupboard, emptied my fridge, donated everything except for the seed oils, which I dumped down the oil because I recognized how dangerous they were. I donated all the other food, although it was still not good for you. It is survival food. And I donated it to the local church pantry and bought meat and started eating. And the only thing I kept in my pantry that was for my son, because he was 13 at the time. And I only have him every other weekend. We're divorced. So I didn't want to force something on him that was so alien. And I figured I'll just set the example. That's the way I led when I was in the Army. And people will follow or they won't, but I'll set the example. So I set the example. And then in July, he became full carnivore on his own volition. And now he's excelling at sports, and he's lost 10 pounds. He looks great. And he's all on board 100%. He went trick-or-treating and just gave his candy to his friends afterwards. He didn't eat any of it. It was pretty amazing. I didn't ask him to do that. He just did it on his own. I'm like, man, that's cool. So that's my story so far.
You were having just accumulation of injury damage and wear and tear over time, and switched over to carnivore incidentally. But what benefits have you noticed so far?
Oh, just things that were, I guess, unexpected. So things I expected first. First, I expected to lose weight. I knew that would happen. I expected brain fog to be lifted based on the videos I watched. That happened. I was like, okay, I expect that. I expected less aches and pains. This is after doing some research before I went in. So and then I got all those. But on top of that, I didn't realize the brain fog was there, but I didn't realize that I also had stress and anxiety and depression that went away too. And I didn't realize the levels that were always constant. And now it's like, I used to have like sad days, like maybe once a week or once a month. I'd have a day where I just wake up and I was just sad. And I figured that's just normal. That's life. You just suck it up and drive on, as we say in the military, and it goes away. And it did. But I would actually be sad some mornings, like not knowing why. It doesn't make sense to me. But now it's like when I wake up, I don't ever have that. When I wake up, I spring out of bed. I don't have to get as much sleep because the quality is so much better, I think. 6 to 7 hours, and man, I am charged. And when I wake up, I don't really even need coffee or anything. I bound out of bed and I'm ready for action. I start doing things. There's no slow moping around the house while I'm like doing dishes, or I'm cleaning, or I'm working on a project. I like to get up and do stuff. Walking the dog is no longer a chore. Getting off the couch is no longer a chore. So I would say the biggest change that I've noticed that I didn't expect was in addition to the brain fog, which I did expect, was the motivation levels went up because I was no longer stressed and anxiety. Didn't have the anxiety. I just felt like doing things. I felt like getting out of the house. I felt like going for hikes. starting a YouTube channel, just doing things. And that's the biggest thing that changed. I didn't expect. Other than that, injuries are healing up. Now, some injuries I have that are service related are tissue injuries that can't heal because they're broken. I have stuff that's no longer attached to where it's supposed to be attached in the body. So that's not going to come back. But the arthritis, definitely way better. My allergies are gone. I didn't expect that. I'd heard about it, but I just didn't understand the difference of being able to breathe through both my nostrils all the time. And it's pretty amazing. And then my hunger signals changed. And you can't really appreciate that until it happens, I think. You hear about it and okay, I get it. But then once you experience it, when you can actually listen to your body, eat whenever you're hungry, and eat to satiety every time, not full or stuffed, just to satiety where you're not hungry anymore. And not have to count calories or anything, and just listen to your body because your body's actually functioning properly. That's a game changer for me. It changed the way I approach food. My relationship with food completely changed because of that. No longer is food a form of entertainment. It's just something I do. It's a biological function, like going to the bathroom. It's like when I was a kid, when I would get called in for dinner, when I was hanging with all my friends and I have to apologize. Hey, I'm sorry, I have to go to dinner. And then I'd go eat. I'd eat as fast as I could so I could get out the door and do something again. That's the way I am now. I just eat as a function, and then I go do something that's more interesting.
That has been my experience as well. Eating I can't describe it as fun, but
right.
When you got a good piece of steak and some eggs, it's nice, but it's still just a normal function, right? Interesting. Very interesting. That isn't to say that eating can't be fun, because especially given in situations like if I go out with my family or something, we go out to, say, an all-you-can-eat restaurant where we can pile up the beef how we want to. That's definitely fun. But then that's the togetherness, the love shared between us. It's not really the food, which is different in perspective than it used to be.
Yeah, I agree. And then it's challenging, as I'll speak as a single person now, because I do go on dates, and it's challenging because that's the expected behavior. Is almost every dating profile I've seen online talks about finding new restaurants as an entertainment that people like to do. And then when you go on a date, you go to a restaurant typically. Now, what I do is I offer my sides up to the person I'm out on a date with, bring home to their family or eat later. And I just eat the steak or a burger or whatever I'm going to eat. But it is awkward. Sure would be nice if we had some kind of carnivore dating app where you could link up with carnivores that were single, because then you have, it is a foundational thing. It's like this. It's like politics, religion, and diet. People will defend those hills to the death once they've taken a side, if they've taken a side. And when you're dating, those are kind of foundational.
I would wonder if we would maybe offer that idea up to someone who has enough money to do the backing on an application or something, if they would be interested.
They probably have like vegan ones. I imagine there's probably working models out there.
They have one for different preferences and sexuality. I'm sure they have ones in different preferences for food.
Yeah, and they have one for religious preferences and political preferences. So why not?
Yeah, it would make sense. It would make sense. Wow, quite an idea there.
For someone that has time and desire to do that, I don't. I'd be a user if it was a good product. Yeah.
I don't have resources or coding skills, so I don't know about that one. That would be interesting, though, wouldn't it? Wow.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you're divorced. How long had you been married?
12 years, 12 and a half years. I think 12 and a half years. Yeah.
Do you think that if your diet had been stable, like with this diet, that things may have been different?
I do.
Or do you think it might not be related?
No, I think the diet's related to a lot of things that people don't. And that's one of them, I think, because my mental health, that year was a really tough year for me. I lost my mother. She died of Alzheimer's that year. I had to put my dog down. He just got too old, and I had to put him down. And then I got deployed for a hurricane it was in Texas, a big hurricane that hit. And when I got back from deployment, then I got served divorce papers. So it was like my life was a country Western song that year. And like people say that this diet is like playing a country Western song in reverse. It is. I call it my hot tub time machine because it brings you back from all the bad things, or not all, but quite a few of them. A couple of things I wonder now after seeing the results in my life and in others that are around me, because other friends and family have embraced this lifestyle too, is would my mother still be here? Alzheimer, hers was definitely a metabolic driven. I could tell she was eating the worst diet you could imagine going into the hospital. And then once she's in the hospital, of course, it is the standard of care diet, which is the US pyramid. It's the worst diet you can get, pudding and all these terrible things, rice. So I wonder if she'd still be here. And then that's one of the driving factors. Once I realized it was good for your memory and your brain function, that's one of the reasons I tried it too, because I was worried that I would get Alzheimer's, because she died at 67, which is 10 years older than I am now. And I was like, man, I'm not ready to go in 10 years. And I don't want my last 10 years to be like hers. So that's one thing. Would it have saved a marriage? Possibly, because I would have probably been, again, more motivated. I've been doing more things. I was depressed that year. That was the most depressed I've ever been in my life. I think I would have handled those things better. I know I would have handled those things better had I been carnivore, because the way I handle things now, I can tell. So that's for sure. Also, people don't link a lot of these things together. And I think that if you look at plant-based diets, which we are on with the standard Western diet, I assume that's what, well, they're eating more, not a Western diet in Indonesia, right? They're eating more like an Eastern diet, but they still have a lot of the same
it's still
problems.
very rice heavy.
Yes, it
They
still
do.
have a lot of problems. But when you eat that many carbs and the seed oils and everything, which have invaded our diets, it's all plant-based, and you're not eating enough animal fats. That's the key. And I think I was thinking about it, and I was talking to Dr. Kiltz about this the other day on a discussion, and we decided that all of the addictions that men have pretty much are plant-based or have roots in plant-based. Even if you go to pornography and you go to gambling, those are impulsive addictions, right? And we know that having a low cholesterol level results in impulsive action, risk-taking, violent action in people. A lot of people that commit suicide violently have low blood cholesterol. You can find that in the NIH papers from the 90s. They've known this. So when the government promotes a low cholesterol body, eating Cheerios and oatmeal to get your cholesterol lower, it's not good for society, I think. And that's why we have a lot more violence. Like when I grew up, we didn't have road rage like we have now, right? Everywhere. And you can drive anywhere and see it now. And at least in America, I don't know about Indonesia, but in America, you see a lot.
It happens here.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that is due to this new, and it is very new, this new diet that we launched, low fat, low cholesterol, in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s. Luckily, I had the benefit of growing up as a child in the 70s and the 60s. So when I ate, for instance, we ate salad pretty much every night, but my mom would make dressing, and it would either be olive oil, which was not probably cut with grapeseed oil or rapeseed oil back then. It was pure olive oil and vinegar, or it would be buttermilk ranch, where she got actual buttermilk and seasoned it to make ranch. So there was no seed oil in our salad dressing, for instance. And in much of the food we ate, you go to McDonald's, the fries were made of 3 ingredients, right? They were potatoes fried in lard.
Potatoes, salt, tallow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or tallow or lard. I don't know which one they used, but it was animal-based fat. Now there's 19 ingredients in French fries at McDonald's, and it's their number one selling item because they've engineered them to break your hunger signals, to bring you a bliss point. They add sugar and salt to them so they can make them addictive. And they are the number one selling item they have. They are very addictive because when you add that sugar, salt, carbohydrate, seed oil combination, they know it breaks your hunger signals. That's why you go to Chick-fil-A, which I thought was this great Christian company that was health food, and you see 100 ingredients in a chicken sandwich. 100. That's hard. It's hard to fathom that a company would do that unless there's a reason behind it. Because listen, it's got to be cheaper just to get a piece of chicken,
There's a reason,
grill it, and put it on a piece of bread that's regular. But when you add all those ingredients, they're doing something. They're making it more addictive. And I was addicted to Chick-fil-A. I loved it. I thought, man, and you would eat it and be hungry a few hours later, right? That's the idea. Just like Chinese food or Asian food, when it's fried up in those oils, you're always hungry a few hours later. And that's the plan. Addictions are plant-based. So you look at all the drugs, they're all plant-based. And food addiction, plant-based. Because I'm on a meat diet now. I'm not addicted to steak or burger. I enjoy eating it when I'm hungry. but there's no, oh, I got to eat it now kind of thing. Or like I would, when I was on, even on artificial sweeteners and eating regular keto around 6 p.m., I would start getting cravings where I'd walk around the kitchen looking for something to eat. And I don't do that anymore. So that's an addiction too, right? So even artificial sweeteners do it too, regardless. It can be natural or artificial. That you have to really cut sweeteners out, I think, to get free of these addictions. But yeah, that's the answer. I think my food signals of being hungry, going to the bathroom, that I didn't expect that either. Going to the bathroom, I only go probably a couple times a week now, and it's very small. It's not huge because I'm digesting almost everything I eat. Because this is Duke here. He's my service dog. Hey, Duke.
Hey, Duke.
So good boy, Duke. So those are the big changes, I think. Yeah.
So what is a typical meal now?
I usually eat ground beef every day, usually burger patties. I will eat 2 to 3 burger patties at a sitting, sometimes with butter. Rarely I'll put cheese on it. And if I do eat dairy, it's usually a condiment. Or if I have friends come over, I'll cut up cheese and meat tray and put it out, and I'll eat some then. And it's usually hard, dry cheese or goat cheese, which I really like. Sometimes a little bit of brie, but no, I don't eat much cheese. If I'm by myself, I don't eat it all pretty much. Once or twice a week, I'll eat a steak typically. Now for Thanksgiving coming up, I'm hosting, and my brother and his family are coming, and my sister and her husband are coming, and I'm making ribeyes for all the adults, and my brother's smoking a turkey. So we're having a carnivore Thanksgiving. I'm making deviled eggs. I made some Dr. Kiltz's ice cream. And I think we're going to have some sides that aren't carnivore because my brother's wife and daughter are not carnivore. I believe my brother and his son are. I haven't really checked in with them lately, but they did start it a while back. We'll have a mix Thanksgiving. But for me, yeah, when I eat, I like to keep it simple because I'm single. So I do a lot of air fryer stuff, microwave stuff, whatever I can do. I did make a chili. I'm trying to go through some meat in my freezer that was a little freezer burned. And you can make a good chili with that, although it's seasoning that's not carnivore. I'm just cooking through it. I didn't want to throw that meat away. I hate to not honor the animal by eating it. And it's just a taste issue. And if you season it, you don't taste it at all. So I've made a couple of chilies and put them in my freezer, and I bust that out and put sour cream in it sometimes and eat it. But I do try to stay away from seasoning that's not salt, right? That's my go-to on a daily basis is Rebnan real salt, which I thought was fake too, but when I tried it, it tastes better. It actually does. It's a better quality salt than any I've ever had. And now I'm like a salt connoisseur. And then I eat some butter too, grass-fed. Now my beef is not grass-fed. My beef, I just get typically corn-fed. Sometimes I get grass-fed ground, but my steaks are corn-fed. I like the way they're, they have better fat in there and it layered in the muscle tissue. And then you can get it at Costco, so it's easy for me to get. So I usually get my steaks at Costco. And then if I get ground beef, I will get it at my local grocery store that's grass-fed sometimes. The butter I always get is grass-fed and grass-finished. So I'm always adding grass-fed fats to my diet on a daily basis.
Yeah, earlier you mentioned about Chick-fil-A being something you enjoyed because you considered it a Christian centerpiece of the community, basically, right? Because a lot of people do believe that. It seems to me, and it upsets me quite a bit, actually, because they know what they're doing, right?
Right.
But then, is that really a Christian thing to do? You know that what you're doing is addictive. You know what you're doing to people, and you know that you're injuring people. You look at that and you think God is not going to hold you to account.
Yeah.
About that.
I don't know how far the knowledge goes up, and I'm sure it started out with this foundation when they were just selling chicken and bread and mayonnaise or whatever. Chick-fil-A has been around a long time, since I was a kid, I think, and it was probably different back then when I was high school. Yeah, we used to get them in high school in the mall, Chick-fil-A sandwiches up in Michigan, I believe. Things change and people running the company change, but I think they just held on to that I guess that ideal or that persona profile so that people do, they're closed on Sunday, so they're a Christian organization and they're pro-family, which they are, and all this stuff. That's great. But the food message, that's not so great. And yeah, so I think maybe they need to educate themselves or change leadership or whatever. That's fine. I just don't go there anymore. And like I said, I used to take my son there, and I was thinking, okay, I'm promoting a good company and cleaner, healthier fast food rather than going to get. Now the reality is it's better to go to McDonald's and get burger patties with nothing on them and eat those than it is to get anything at Chick-fil-A. And that's just a fact. from a carnivore point of view. I mean, Kelly
Yeah,
Hogan
if you
does
can be
that.
sure.
So what's that?
If you can be sure that they're 100, if you can be sure that they're 100% beef, then
They
I don't
are.
have any
Yeah,
problem with that.
the quarter pound patties are, by penalty of law, state that they are 100% beef and nothing else, and they're not fried on any seed oils. And that's what Kelly Hogan has done and still does to this day, is eats burger patties daily from McDonald's. So I've had them. They're pretty good.
I'd be glad to find out they are actually 100% beef.
Well, I mean, if you take a patty and get it analyzed in a lab and it's not, you can sue them, because it does say 100% beef, and the FDA does require it to be 100% beef if they say that. So it is a penalty of law, and that's what Dr. Berg talks about. He says it is definitely beef. I know them and Five Guys and In-N-Out Burger are 100% beef, and Jack in the Box and Wendy's. Those are all 100% beef patties on the label. And if you ask them, they say they are. I recommend, if you have questions.
False advertising.
Yeah. It's not just that. It's not just advertising, but it's against the law. The USDA or whatever basically says, if it says it's 100% beef, then you're breaking the law if it's not. So there could be a class action lawsuit if that's not true. So now, is it processed beef?
Like, how many people have eaten it?
Yeah, exactly. Billions served. So
do the math.
yeah, it could be bad for them. So I think I kind of tend to trust them on that. And the good thing about eating burger patties is they don't usually, whereas a steak, they'll spray the grill down, usually with a seed oil, and put a steak on a grill at a restaurant. Burgers, because they have their own fat, they just throw the burger on the grill just like you do it at home on your barbecue. And it's got enough fat where it creates its own kind of coating on the grill.
Long ago, when I worked at a McDonald's, that's how we did it. We just threw the pucks underneath the grill pad and then just pressed the grill pad down, and that was it.
That's what they do now. If you ask them, because I've asked, and other Dr. Saladino's done videos, Dr. Barry's done videos. It's not the cleanest, but it's still 1,000% better than going to Chick-fil-A and getting a 100-ingredient sandwich. It's way better than that, because it's just beef and salt. Now, their salt probably has some sugar in it. They put salt and pepper on the beef, and there probably is some sugar in their salt, but you could order it with no salt and salt it yourself. But if you look at Kelly Hogan, I know you know who Kelly Hogan is. You look at her results, and she still eats it daily, 4 patties a day. And that's what she's been doing for 13 years. You can't argue with that. It is healing to eat that compared to a standard diet.
Yeah, I've seen her recent photo on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that was pretty good. Yeah, she was talking about how she was debating with herself whether or not to post her picture because she was him hawing around about it. Maybe it's not perfect, but she said to herself, I encourage people all the time to post those photos because I would say it's wonderful, it's beautiful, it looks great. And so she didn't want to deny herself that. So she posted it up. A lot of positive comments out there.
Yeah.
Well, how about it? Did you put on a lot of muscle?
Yeah, I'm putting muscle on, and I just started working out again. When I started this, and I can send you a picture you can put on this video later if you want. But when I started this diet, I didn't really work out. I just did walking, and I still put muscle on, even though I was just walking. And then I bought an X3 system after a couple months, which is a rubber band platform system, and started doing some workouts, and I put muscle on rapidly, super rapidly. And I was only working out 40 minutes a week, 4 10-minute sessions a week, which I've just started doing again. And I did that for months and added tons of muscle and started losing fat, where my body weight actually plateaued after about 60 or 70 days from 280 to 250. So I lost 30 pounds, but I continued losing waist size and filling out my shirt better. And now I'm down. Then I went lion diet without working out and dropped down to 234, which I'm at now. And I just started lifting weights again with the band system, doing, again, 40 minutes per week is all I do, 4 10-minute sessions. And I walk. I don't run, do no cardio, and feel fantastic.
So I've just got back into exercising with the group at the university that I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing badminton and push-ups and sprints and stuff. So it's a new thing for me.
I've done some sprints and they feel good.
Like that in a long time.
Yeah, I've done some sprints and they feel good, right?
Yes. After my first run of sprints, I was like, dang, I'm going to keep going. And I kept going. And it was like, wow.
You feel fast and feel athletic. right? It's the first time in years that I've felt athletic and fast. I feel like an athlete when I'm sprinting. It's really crazy. And I thought at this age I would never sprint again in my life. I just didn't. I thought that was gone. Never going to feel that again. But when you do it, you feel a rush. It's amazing.
Yeah. With how my knees had gone, I didn't think I'd be running.
And I've talked to a lot of other people that do sprints too that have gone on this, and it's just strange because why would we start sprinting? And it's pretty common for males. I haven't talked to females that did, but males that have in their 50s or late 40s or start sprinting again. It's like, why? That's just so bizarre and random, but we do. It's like we feel like running, right? It's one of those things where the motivation comes back and you feel like doing something, and it's just a strange thing that has to do with carnivore. When I was keto, I never felt like that. There was no motivation change when I was keto. There was no shift in my psyche like there is with this. So it's you can definitely tell that it's the way we're supposed to eat. It's the proper human diet, as Dr. Berry says. And the way you can tell is just the fruits, the proof in the pudding, right? You can just know that this is not the wrong way to eat.
It is the case. It's a beautiful thing to find that just changing your dietary style can change your entire lifestyle. And the community that grows up around it is also so welcoming. And it's a bright spot in my life right now to have this community and all the friends that I've come to know from this. How about your community? Did it shift and grow?
Well, yeah, I started a YouTube channel and a Facebook page, so I have a lot of people that I communicate with that on there, which is great. And I never anticipated doing that, never wanted to have a YouTube channel. But now that I do, there's a lot of people I'm in touch with, people I've interviewed for, I have a podcast slash YouTube channel called Mission Carnivore that it's a playlist on YouTube and it's a podcast that I interview first responders and military that have gone carnivore. And I have a lot of good friends from there now that I keep in touch weekly, sometimes daily. We have a lot in common. And then I have another podcast called The Carnivore Way, where I'm interviewing YouTube content creators on carnivore. And I'm meeting people left and right, and we have so much in common. It's amazing. Like I said, it's foundational. If you have these foundations in common, you can meet someone that you hardly know, but okay, I've got this much in common right away. Whether it's diet, religion, politics, nationality, whatever it is. If you meet an American when you're abroad, you have a lot in common, right? If you meet a carnivore when you're out and about, you have a lot in common right away. If you meet a Christian in another country, you have a whole Bible in common, right? You have a lot of things in common. So these are foundational things. And I think it makes it easier. It kind of greases the skids to friendship when you meet people that are in the fight with you. Same with veterans. You meet a veteran, you've been there, you've done that, whether they served in Vietnam, World War II, Korea, whatever, or the modern wars. We have a lot in common because we've been and done a lot of the same things. So there's a level of respect there. There's a level of connection of having done things like they have, like I've been there with you. So I call it a brotherhood or brotherhood and sisterhood. And I think that extends through your faith, through your politics, through your nationality, definitely through your diet.
Touching on faith just now, you mentioned Christianity and the Bible being a common thread. But what is your personal faith? And how has it been affected by diet?
So I am a Christian. I mean, my faith has always been strong since I became a Christian. I became a Christian at 30, so I wasn't a Christian most of my life. But I'm 57 now, so I'm 27 years into my walk. And I think that I just see things better and have a better appreciation of things on this diet in my faith than I did before. I mean, before you had those days of mental cloudiness, those days of depression, and you're thinking, and you don't want to complain. You don't want to think I shouldn't be depressed. You think that everyone is. But I think once you start eating the right food and your brain's working right, then it opens a lot of, I guess it opens a lot of pathways to keep your channel open with God, or when you're reading the Bible, you feel more engaged, I think more connected. And I think the diet that we were on, being poisoned, being sick all the time, definitely hinders your relationship, or it can, with other Christians, with spouses, with children, with God. So I think that adding this diet it's like a force multiplier. In the military, we call it a force multiplier, right? So if you're going to do a mission and you have guys on the ground, that's one force. And then if you add air cover, you have force multiplier. They make those guys on the ground way more effective, right? And if you have artillery support, another multiplier. So we have force multipliers, and I think this diet is a force multiplier for your faith. I really do.
Could you detail for me any perhaps spiritual concerns or connections or things that have stood out to you in some kind of a way that you think probably wouldn't have before?
Oh, when you see that every institution is lined up against what is right, this is something I've been seeing over the last 5 years. You start realizing that how fallen our world is even from churches. You just see it now. You see that it's just ingrained, the lie that we've been fed, and not just diet, but everything, government, all the institutions of the world are pretty much based on lies. And that's what I believe now. It's really weird, but the only thing it's not is the Bible, because it's still original, right? But anything that's even churches, these are institutions created and run by people that are not perfect. And I think it's tough to completely buy into these organizations, institutions now, seeing that everything is based on a lie. That's the way it is, except for the truth in the Bible. That's the only thing that hasn't changed, right? But like I said, it is something that everyone has in common. It's a Christian. Like if I go overseas, which I have, and you go to another country and you meet another Christian, you already have the whole Bible in common, right? So you already, provided they're actually a Christian who believes that Christ died on the cross, raised 3 days later. That's the closed hand stuff. Whether they're believing in a rapture or whatever, I don't care about that. That's open hand to me. That doesn't matter. As long as they have the fundamentals and we believe the same thing, then we can debate other stuff. But I think so it really makes you value that truth more, because you're exposed to the lies in every other institution that you trusted. How about that? So when I go to a church, I don't expect a church of perfection. I expect it to be messy, to have problems, because it's run by people. And I know people are all like that, because I am, right? So I think some people go into a church and they expect it to be, oh, this is where the saved people are, so it's a safe place. No, it's not really. You have to be your own advocate for your faith, just like you do with your health. You have to basically look out for yourself and your family and base it on something that you know is a fact. Because if we go around and listen to society, then the standard American diet is good. And if you go to church and listen to someone else's interpretation of the Bible, it may be helpful, it may not, it may be right, it may be wrong, but you don't know. It's best to get your own prayer and get your own Bible reading and figure that out yourself. And you can discuss it with other people, and that's definitely encouraged. But don't say, well, this guy's a pastor, so I need to follow what he says. That's probably the wrong answer.
It really is like that. You're going to follow a leader in any particular venue or institution, you're going to end up following him right off a cliff.
Yeah, possibly. You just don't know. So there's just things you can do to test, whether something's real or not, like implementing things in your life, right? And that may or may not be a good plan. If someone says, hey, if you start eating saccharin every day, that's going to be good for you. I'm not going to go test that in my life, right? Because I'm going to look around first and see what people are doing eating saccharin and say, that's not something I would do. So you can test it in your life, or you can look and see how other people's lives are going and see how they're doing. And you can also, if you have a point of truth, which you do in the Bible, you can go back to that and clarify, like, okay, what does this line up with what's in what we called in the Army, you do land nav. So you have navigation points. So does this navigation point line up? Because I know that's true with what I'm seeing out here. Or am I lost? Am I off track? Right. So the more times you look at your compass, and in the Army, we do land nav where you shoot reverse azimuths to find your location. The more times you do that, the more accurate you're going to be on track. So you have to look at your reference quite a bit, whether it's astral, stars, or it's a landmark that you're shooting reference, like a mountain peak or something, or it's the Bible. That's what you do. So you find something you know is true. And like we could say in carnivore, because you see people like Dr. Saladino in carnivore, diet-wise, he's off track, I believe. And you can look at other people that are on track and who are getting the results and say, okay, these guys seem like they have the right answer. So that's going to be my point right now. And whether it's studies are doing or just seeing the actual facts in the result, you can say, okay, that makes more sense. Hey, cancer being a metabolic disease makes more sense than just a genetic thing, because our genes haven't changed since 1900 that much, right? We haven't evolved since 1900 to 2023 to so much that cancer is more prevalent because our genes have gotten, what has changed? It's not our genes, it's the metabolic disease, right? And that makes sense. So you can look at historical stuff and find your point that's true north. And once you have that true north, just keep referencing things you hear against that until that true north proven false, right? If someone comes out and proves something false, then you don't follow it anymore. But for now, the carnivore diet is the proper human diet, and things like cancer being a metabolic disease, that makes sense to me based on everything I've researched to this point. And that's the other thing we should continue to research, including faith, right? So if you're going to be a Christian, then you have an obligation to know what that means. And if you're going to be a carnivore, you also have an obligation to know what that means. You can't just, well, Dr. Berry said it, so I'm going to do it. That's probably the wrong answer. Find out why you're doing it, because Dr. Berry could be wrong in the future. He was keto before he was carnivore. And if you watch one of his old videos, you might think it's okay to do something because it's, and it's not carnivore, but it's still in his video libraries. Or you might follow Dr. Saladino and be influenced by him and not know why you shouldn't. So I think continuing education is something we all need to do.
That's an excellent point. And touching on Saladino, I know that a lot of people have covered the details, but in case somebody's watching this, they don't know who Saladino is. He is a carnivore influencer who now says he's carnivore but meat-based. What that means is that he incorporates things that are not meat, including large amounts of fruit and copious amounts of honey. Now, he says it's raw honey, and somehow that's supposed to make it okay. We here at Bold Carnivore do not advocate large doses of carbohydrates for any purposes, okay? Now, there are some people who are incorporating a little bit here and there as they go through like menopause or something like that. And look at former fat girl, Nicole, and she'll tell you that in her research and her studies, she understands that there's a reason for that. And she tells some people, look, you might want to incorporate a little bit here, a little bit there. And my friend Bart K, he has patients clients that come to him, and they have to have some carbohydrates because their body has been so dilapidated that it no longer functions in the right way without a little bit of carbohydrate. But copious amounts of honey and fruit, probably not a good idea.
Yeah, and the fact that you hit on the nail on the head there, though, those people have done the research, so they understand the process and why you might need some carbohydrates. But they also recognize that a carbohydrate-heavy diet or primarily carbohydrate diet is the wrong answer. They didn't just say, well, I'm just going to try some carbohydrates and see what happens. They actually did some research. Saladino, he's supposedly done some research too, but I think he's off base. I know myself. Okay.
N equals 1, I think.
Yeah, N equals 1. And that's what I said. I know myself. You have to not only become an expert, you don't have to become an expert. You should be knowledgeable on what a carnivore diet is. But as far as N equals 1, you have to become a subject matter expert on your body, knowing your weaknesses, your strengths, and your reactions. So for me, I know that when I did keto, because I've done it several times in the past, I always fell off going for the sweets. The Quest bar would lead me to something else, and finally I'd be off the diet because I'd be craving and I'd eat some candy or something. So I knew that, okay, some people do keep some artificial sweeteners in their diet. I really don't. I do some ice cream with it a little every now and then. But if I do, then I have cravings. So I just know myself. My N equals 1 is, for me, zero carb, 0 sweets. So I don't do any artificial sweeteners, even though they're 0 calorie. I don't do diet sodas. I just do water and Topo Chico, or what we have here in Texas, 1877. I think it's called, 1877, which is like a Texas version of Topo Chico, just, carbonated mineral water. And if I do introduce sweets, it's going to be a problem. So I don't. And I don't cheat because of that. I don't break down and have a piece of pie or whatever, because I know that leads me to the wrong place. So it's better if I just don't, and I feel great without it. So you have to become an expert on yourself, and you should know the fundamentals of the carnivore diet and understand why you're doing it too. Develop your why. Your why has to be bigger than losing 18 pounds, right? losing 18 pounds is great, but that should not be your why. Because that's your why, you'll fail on this diet like you failed on every other diet you've done, because that's been your why on every other diet. Once you realize that this is just the right tool for not just losing weight, but healing and all these other benefits in your life, then you can learn to embrace it. And it's worth it then. It's like, okay, this is worth doing. It's worth me not having pie on Thanksgiving, because I know long term, I feel great now. I feel confident. I don't know about you. Okay, so motivation went up. My confidence level went up on everything, because I feel like I can go to the beach and take my shirt off and I'm not like a fat slob. I feel like I just feel confident in everything, because I'm knocking out of the park with this diet. I'm succeeding. So I'm building confidence based on being successful at what I'm doing. And it carries over into everything in my life beyond just diet. It carries into every aspect of my life, being confident. So
Appreciate that. And going back to the n=1 point, yeah. Now, I know that Saladino is using himself as an n=1, and that's understandable. But we understand, we in the community would leave this alone if he would just specify, this is me, n=1.
right.
But from what I understand of it, there have been some times where he's encouraging other people to follow along. And that's why I would say, oops, But yeah.
If I did honey like that, I would be addicted. I would have cravings every night. I already know I would, because I've done it in the past. And once I have cravings, then now you're fighting your diet. I don't fight my diet right now. I would be fighting my diet. This is the first way of eating I've ever done that I don't have to fight my body, my mind, my cravings. I'm going along with it, right? I'm in unison with those, and I'm just going forward. Whereas if I was doing sugar, I'd be in a battle, and I can't keep that up forever. I know I can't. I've lost it in the past. So I would lose again. I would fall off. So I never recommend people ease into this diet people like me that were addicts, because you don't ease an alcoholic off alcohol, right? You don't say, all right, we're just going to drink your liquor cabinet dry and we're going to slow down. We're only going to have a couple shots a night. We'll start off with 3 shots. We'll go down to 2 and down to 1 shot a night until your alcohol's all gone. And then we're going to switch over. For an alcoholic, that's not the way you do it. You cut things off and you make it, but that's the n=1, right? You have to know yourself too. That alcoholic knows they can't have alcohol because it ruins their life. For me, I can't have sugar. It ruins my life. Now, some people are moderators. They can drink one night and then not drink for 3 months, and they're fine. They have no problem. That person could do a weaning off of carbohydrates if their body's the same with carbohydrates, where they can either have a piece of cake and not even eat the whole piece of cake, or like my son, he was a moderator. He would get his Halloween candy in the past, and he would donate most of it away, keep a small bag of what he liked, and put it in his drawer. And I'd go in there 3 months later and throw it away because it had gone bad, because you'd only eat 2 or 3 pieces of candy. That was not me. When I was a kid, I ate all the candy, even stuff I wasn't a fan of. I would just eat it because it was sugar and I was addicted. So if you know yourself, like I said, your n=1, you got to become the expert. And you know you're the kind of person that cannot moderate, that if you eat Oreos, you eat them till you're full, or whatever it is, whatever your thing is, Doritos, you eat a whole bag, then you need to do burning the ships, empty the cabinet, and cut yourself off, which I think most of us are in that camp. I think most. There's a lot that aren't. Saladino may be one of those guys that's not, but I don't know. I'm not him, so I can't tell.
Really hard to say. Well, Larry, I don't want to take up too much of your time, and I would like if you would add maybe an additional bit, maybe for someone who's just coming into the carnivore diet, or some little nugget of wisdom that somebody could take away from here. Not that there hasn't been a lot of them, because there certainly has, but just one little pearl prize that you could put on top there.
Yeah, I would say, in addition to educating yourself, if you found this video somehow and you're not a carnivore yet, then someone watched and liked and subscribed to this content creator. And by doing so, the algorithm was fed and you were fed this video to look at. So this is for a reason. You're here for a reason. And I believe that reason is to dive in, seek the truth, and then apply it in your life. And that's the carnivore diet for me. For many people I know it is. So I would say, once you found this video, now seek other carnivores that are making content and watch their content and reinforce that message. Find people that are successful, that know what they're talking about, doctors, success stories, watch their success stories, and do that daily, especially when you start this diet. Continue your education, continue learning about what to expect, learn about your body. Also like and subscribe and support YouTube content creators that are making truthful information that is helpful, so that by liking, subscribing, you don't have to be a content creator, but you can help push this message to other people and influence their lives and impact them. Like mine, my life has completely changed. I don't know about yours, but my life completely changed based on this diet. So you can actually be an agent of change in other people's lives just simply by liking, subscribing, and sharing this video and other YouTube content creators. So I just recommend you do that. If you just watch the video and you don't like and subscribe and share, you're just feeding yourself, which is fine. That's okay. But if you really want to drive this message out and you had an opportunity like a megaphone, that's what this is. Liking, subscribing, and sharing is like having a megaphone and telling all these people, hey, this is the truth, guys. Check it out.
Thank you very much, Larry. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in. This has been Larry All Hands. He goes by Carnivore Soldier on YouTube and on Facebook. You guys go on and check him out, yeah? Be bold,
All right.
everybody.
Thanks.